Okay, so we've pretty much wrapped up E3 now. I think there are still a few other little events going on, like the Xbox Showcase Extended that they're doing. But the big part around Xbox that myself and Jon Cartwright, who's joining me today, we're talking about was Halo. We thought that Microsoft had to have a good showing for Halo Infinite, at least a meaningful showing for Halo Infinite. And, well, we got a pretty good look at the game itself, at least the multiplayer, and that's what a lot of us are really interested in. So I wanted to bring Jon in so we kind of take a look back and give our thoughts on what they showed, especially in kind of the extended multiplayer session that they had, and they talked with developers to get some commentary there. So Jon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. It feels great to be excited about Halo again after all these years.
Yeah, Halo. I mean, maybe I don't know if it's just me, but Halo did have a bit of a downturn, especially since I think a lot of people feel it after Bungie left and 343 took over. There's always been a lot of skepticism around 343.
Yeah, I've been playing since the very first Halo, and I've stuck with 343 with Halo 4 and Halo 5, and I enjoyed them somewhat, but it just didn't capture the same magic. But till this day, I mean, Halo the Master Chief Collection is 7 years old, and I'm still playing it every week. So, like, the core Halo formula is still so much fun. And
Yeah,
it looks like they're doing the right things with this one.
You're right. I play the Master Chief Collection quite a bit as well. We've played together a couple of times, even just like randomly, like, hey,
Yeah.
you want to jump on? Yeah, let's jump on. So the Master Chief Collection is still rolling pretty strong, and I think a lot of that has to do with it just being the same feel of the older Halo games. Because it's weird. You think we would be playing Halo 5, but instead we're like, let's play Halo 3.
Yeah, let's stick with the game from 2007.
Yeah, so that should tell you something about kind of 343 and what they've been doing over the last several years. Well, with the last couple of iterations they've done with Halo 4 and Halo 5, but they showed off Halo Infinite, and there was certainly, I would say, a real push on their end to be like, hey, this is more like old Halo that all of you guys like, that all the core Halo fans or people who are still playing Master Chief Collection. This is like older Halo for the most part. They really wanted to kind of ingrain that this isn't going to be like Halo 5 2.0 or something. At least what I was getting from some of the commentary. But were you surprised that during the show that they had, like the big Xbox show, about 5 minutes I think was dedicated to Halo, and like 85% of that was just multiplayer. They didn't touch on the campaign that much. It was a cinematic, and then they just jumped over to what looked like just in-game action for the multiplayer side of things.
Yeah, it was quite surprising. 'Cause I thought that they'd want to redeem themselves after last year's showing and like show a similar area and how they've sort of given it a facelift. But no, I mean they had that flyover of the campaign level, but that was very, very brief, and then went straight into that cinematic. So I was pretty surprised with that. And even within the multiplayer, they had this trailer with very quick cuts, and it gave you the vibe, but you didn't really get a great impression of how it would flow until they uploaded the overview trailer later on. But yeah, it was a bit quick, the Halo showing within the actual presentation.
Yeah, I mean, they showed some cuts here and there of the multiplayer going on, but then, like the next day, they did this whole 12-minute thing where they went over a lot of the stuff in the Halo multiplayer, where they showed off weapons, game modes, plans for monetization, and continue to enforce that this is free to play, which there's no longer Xbox Live Gold membership for free to play games. So this will legitimately be a game that you don't even need Xbox Live Gold. You just turn on your Xbox or your PC or any of that, and you're in. And it has full cross progression and cross play as well. So mobile, if you're playing through xCloud, or on your PC or Xbox natively, you can pretty much sign in from any of those places and just start playing immediately. But like I said, this 12-minute or so presentation went over quite a bit, but again, all about the multiplayer. What was there anything really big here that was standing out to you, Jon, when you saw it, that kind of caught you by surprise, or something that you're really interested in?
So the grapple within the multiplayer seems to have a ton of great potential. My favorite part of the actual trailer from the E3 presentation was when you grapple jack a flying vehicle, and you just grab it from the air, and you can also use the grapple to get weapons as well, which seems like there's a ton of potential there. Because in most Halo matches, everyone goes towards the power weapons. Like if you're on a map with an energy sword, everyone's going to run towards there and try and battle it out for that sword. But if you wanted to, you can get a grapple instead. and then grapple the sword from a distance. So it kind of changes up the how you approach a map. So I think the
Yep.
grapple's going to have a ton of potential in multiplayer.
Yeah, for anyone who's unsure is what we're talking about, if you've been playing Halo for a while, the first thing everyone does before like it beeps and everyone goes, everyone kind of talks very quickly as to who's going for what when it comes to the power weapons, who's getting the rocket, who's getting the sniper, who's trying to grab that overshield. But now, you're right, that grappling hook was the standout from this whole thing. We saw it in the single player a little bit. We were wondering, is that going to be a multiplayer? Yes, and it appears it's a pickup, so you have to go find it. Is what they were saying. So that, to me, can be a game changer if used correctly. And something I've learned with the Halo community is they will find all kinds of weird uses for some of these things, right? Like they will figure out how they can use that grappling hook to the best of their advantage. And I wasn't even thinking about vehicle jacking a Banshee, for example, with it when they first showed it off. I was like, oh, that'll help us get around to higher areas easier. Or maybe if you grab the grappling hook, it'll be easier to get up the side of a base to get the flag. But then they're like, oh, you can grab a fusion coil and throw it. And it's like, I did not even, or you can grapple a weapon from pretty far away, which if somebody falls in the middle of the field and the sniper drops or the rocket launcher and you have a grappling hook, you can just, kind of rappel over there, grab it, and then take out a bunch of people with it. So the grappling hook is going to be a pretty powerful pickup, and they showed it for maybe a minute or two of it being used. So that's the one that I'm really curious to see how it changes the flow of battle.
Yeah. Halo's always been about the sandbox and using what's around you. And they iterated this so many times within the overview. And one of the first things they said is it's about everyone starting on even footing and then slowly building up to power weapons and then fighting over those. And that's something that 4 in particular didn't do. Like 4, you had some loadouts where you can spawn with an assault rifle or a battle rifle or something like that. So everyone's not starting with the same stuff, and that is a big step back from Halo.
Yep.
And 5, it didn't quite do that, but they definitely put their own stamp on what Halo should be. Whereas this, it looks like they're going back to the Bungie days. They're still putting their spin on it, but they are framing everything around the free for all of starting on even footing, battling out, and then equipment's kind of a foundation upon that. Like a grapple is something you can use a few times, but you've got to find it first.
Yes.
So I love this stuff.
Yep. You know what I really liked? I haven't really thought about it too much before this, but did you see the way that they're handling the camo and the overshield?
Oh yeah, you store it, right?
You store it. And what's interesting about that is of course you can decide when you use it, which if you're running into battle and you catch somebody and they're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and pop that overshield. That's rough. But like the idea that if you fall in battle while holding one of them and you just drop it and someone can pick it up, that's another really big deal because you don't want to go into the enemy's base with the overshield if you think you're going to get taken out. So, like, once again, it does introduce a lot. And I notice it takes, I'm going to say a couple of seconds to pop it. Like, it's not instant. There's an animation that has to play. So you could even be taken out maybe before that animation follows all the way through and you drop it. So, like, a single sniper shot could take you out as you think you're about to pop the overshield and then take everyone out. So, like, it's That's another big thing. I didn't even think of that, but it still plays into, like you're saying, the arena style of Halo while still trying to kind of put their own spin and make it feel a bit newer or more modern. You're right, though, with Halo 4, they started to go down the route because Reach sort of set this, but Halo 4 continued to build on it, make it more like a Call of Duty Halo.
Mm-hmm. And you're totally right. Reach did set this. I don't want to blame 343 for everything. Armor abilities kind of set off the even footing of the playing field. And he had armor abilities like stealth, camouflage. So I guess this is basically that, but you pick it up. And you've got to decide, do you want to have active camo or do you want to grapple? Because you can't have both. So mixing that up, I think that's really going to keep everything really balanced. Because when I first thought you can store an overshield, I thought, that's gonna make everything really tricky when you're just trying to shoot someone. But no, because you can have a grapple on you, or you can have a shield on you. It really does change how you approach each battle.
Yep, and it looks like they have a big emphasis on like big team battle. They were showing that off a lot with vehicles everywhere, and they have these little touches too that I noticed because they mentioned that instead of vehicles just spawning in, they're gonna have the Pelicans drop them off.
Yeah.
So I guess you can spot when vehicles like the Scorpion tank or Warthog or the Razorback they talk about, you could maybe spot them from distance being delivered to an enemy base or your base, and I should turn around and try to meet that Pelican back at the base when they drop the Scorpion off. Like, that is actually, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but in the middle of these game types, and you look up and you see that stuff happening, can, I think, significantly change the flow and the strategy in these games.
Mm-hmm. And to a lesser extent, you've also got weapons which now spawn through those like Halo 2 drops. I'm not sure how you describe them, but that's also a great visual indicator. Because in Halo 5 and I think Halo 4 as well, you'll have icons which just show you exactly where like a plasma pistol or something is.
Yep.
Whereas now something's going to fall from the sky and everyone's going to see it. So it's that rush to get something as soon as it spawns.
Yeah, it feels like they realized, everyone wants old Halo, so let's just make old Halo. I mean, they have to see the number. I bet you Master Chief Collection has to easily outpace Halo 5 when it comes to online player count. I don't even think it's close. So, like, they have to see that and be like, all right, people are really looking. And I bet you even in Master Chief Collection, a lot of people aren't even playing 4. Like, no, it's probably a lot of 2 and 3.
On my playlist. I don't touch 4.
Yeah, it's probably a lot of 2 and 3, and they're like, all right, let's pull from 2 and 3. And this looks like a combination of 2 and 3 with some newer additions tacked on, and like I think it's great. Like, this multiplayer looks like it's gonna be a ton of fun. And there was a lot of talk around the visuals. I think the visuals are fine. I mean, it's a cross-gen game, but when we're playing Halo, very rarely are you stopping to look at anything around you in multiplayer and try to look at reflections and all of this, because by then you're probably getting shot in the head. So that's something I'll keep more for the single player, when they obviously have these large vistas that you're kind of peering over, and I'll save the sightseeing for that. But I think visually speaking, it's fine, considering they're going to shoot for 120 frames on the Series X, which is significantly more important than making everything as shiny as possible.
Sure, and the art style is still appealing as well. They've reverted back to a lot of older weapon designs, like the battle rifle is straight out of Bungie's era.
Yes.
So they redesigned it to be quite realistic in 4 and 5. And I like that they've reverted back. And even the assault rifle is like straight out of Reach. So, and it's also way more colorful. Like 5 was very determined to have everything be very shiny and metallic. And I'm seeing a lot more, not just color, but a bit more roughness to the world, which is a bit more appealing.
I'm gonna mention one thing that I noticed. I'm slightly concerned about it, because it still doesn't feel like the Halo movement that I'm expecting from this game when I started up. I saw some sprinting in there.
There's definitely sprinting, yeah.
And it doesn't sound like a big deal to people who maybe aren't playing as much Halo. Sprinting is a big deal in Halo.
Yeah.
It is. And I noticed it, and I was like, I wonder if that's just like, is that just by default? Everyone's just sprinting around? I don't know. It's because in Halo, some people will talk about it being slow at times in like Halo 3, for example, because there's no sprinting, but it's just, I don't know, that's the way it feels, very purposeful with Halo. But I mean, I guess on the battlefield, Spartans would run if they could. So
yeah, it might work. It depends how the maps are designed as well. I've noticed too, the iron sights from Halo 5 are back. Like when you press the left trigger in, you can sort of zoom in. So that's back in there too. Not a huge deal, especially because it looks like a lot of the action is still happening from the hip. So it's not necessary. But sprinting is definitely a foundation which can either go one or two ways. I like that in Halo 5, when you're sprinting, your shields don't recharge. So there is a punishment for using it.
Yes, and it looked like they took out like the thrusters as well, or at least they didn't show any of it. So that's good, because I don't really know how many people enjoyed that in Halo 5. There were a lot of things that in Halo 5 that turned people off. I'll say that from the Halo community. It was very controversial multiplayer. People always talk about the single player. That multiplayer was very controversial, is what I'll say.
Yeah, there was a community for it. People do like Halo 5.
Yeah.
I don't want to complain about it too much either, but in last year's showing, in the 2021, they show clambering as well, which is from Halo 5. And I don't think we've seen it in the recent build.
Yeah, they definitely showed us certain things in this. Like, the biggest thing we're at to see is when they open up flight testing, and they said that's going to happen in like the next month or two, I think. And then I guess people are actually going to be trying this out in maybe like an open beta format. And I think they really need to do a big open beta, like publicized one. Say, all right, this weekend you guys can sign in. We'll test the servers, because after Master Chief Collection launch, they should be testing every one of these Halo launches, and see how things go and get some feedback for balancing, and then kind of make a run towards its release day.
Yeah.
I
There's definitely concerns that I have, I guess, but just looking at it though, I'm feeling like this feels like Halo. The
It
music
does.
that we've heard in the campaign sounds straight out of Bungie's era. There's little riffs from Halo 2 and 3, and just in terms of gameplay, I mean, just the action looks like the glory days of Halo 2 and Halo 3.
Yep.
And yeah, I have concerns, sure, but maybe they can pull it off. I don't want them to not put their foot on it at all. Like 343 clearly have ideas, and I think they can work. And I kind of want to just give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they can make it work.
Yeah, they'll get this. They'll get this last shot from me, is what I'll say. Well, they'll get Halo Infinite, and then after that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, if this ends up being a bad game, a bad Halo, then I don't know. I don't know what 343 does at that point, because they're a really
I mean,
big
they've had
studio,
Halo for longer than
so.
Bungie did at this point, so they've had
Yeah.
quite a few chances.
People just want them to make that Halo 2 or that Halo 3, that big game that comes out and makes the entire gaming space kind of stop and look at it and like, wow, this is an incredible game. I'm hoping this is it for them. They've designed this entirely new engine, so they're not dealing with the engine that was left to them. And they've had a lot of time and a lot of resources dedicated to this. There was talks at one point this was $500 million to create this whole thing.
Jesus.
So I really hope that this is the big jumping off point for 343. You know what? I keep thinking about it here and there. You're okay with the free-to-play for Halo multiplayer?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
they said that their battle passes aren't going to be something that's going to intrude on the gameplay. You can always
Right.
like buy previous passes, and they never like go out of date or anything like that. And I'm not really seeing any elements that will intrude on classic Halo.
Sure, it's a lot of cosmetic stuff, which is fine
Yeah.
because people like to customize their Spartans, and that's something they introduced back in like Halo 3, where you get different armor pieces, and I mean that was fun, to go through that, and they've been building on that with Master Chief Collection, obviously up to this point. So the fact that the Battle Pass, you buy it, it doesn't expire, it's a free to play game, so they're going to monetize it in some way. It's better than you having to pay money for like starting with a grappling hook or something like that. So it's
Yeah, I love that they're not doing that because they could very
Yeah.
easily say like, "You give us $10 and you can spawn with a rocket launcher," and that would have ruined it. So
Yep.
I'm curious how profitable it's going to be if it is just cosmetics, but I'm digging it. I don't really have a problem with free to play.
So I am curious about one thing because they haven't, I don't think, mentioned it, but they were certainly showing off some pretty big battles there, and there was a rumor at one point that they were going to do these massive like 100-person battles that were not battle royales. So I'm wondering if that's one of their big reveals coming up, is that there will be these huge rooms, almost like Mag, even though, where they split them up slightly, but everyone's still kind of playing together. Because they showed off some pretty big maps there for a little while with vehicles all over the place. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to right now, are reveals of either larger battles or just bigger maps even than we've ever seen with Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the maps are something I want to see a bit more detail. Like, I don't think any of them really stood out as well. These are going to be like a classic map. But we didn't see much of it, so maybe there's still time for that. Yeah, I think scale is definitely the big thing. And Halo always brings back maps from previous games too. And there have been some pretty big areas over the years. I'm imagining maybe they can even like take maps like Blood Gulch and just expand them to be massive.
Even if they doubled up from 16 to 32, I think that would still be a whole thing as well. Just for Halo Infinite. So, I'm looking forward to see what they have with Big Team Battle, because that's always just chaos and fun, So that could be a good time. But we've talked about the multiplayer. I am curious about one thing here very quickly. How do you think the campaign is going to do, considering it's going to be separated from the multiplayer, and it's technically going to be a full-price game? I know it's going to be part of Game Pass, but they're going to put it on retail store shelves as a $60 game for just the campaign. And obviously this is something they've had a hard time with, because last time they showed it, it didn't go over well online. But we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit with some mild campaign talk here. What do you think? Do you think they're going to pull it off for $60?
Oh, I mean, as you said, it's part of Game Pass, so I guess that's not really a huge concern. But if you look on Steam, Xbox games are always in the top sellers, so people will buy it on there.
Yeah.
And
I think...
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think if they can really show off an evolution of the Halo campaign as they've described as being a semi-open world game that gives you a solid 15 to 20 hours to start out with, and they continue to add to it, I feel like people will say, okay, that's worth jumping into, especially if it is just about Master Chief, because Halo 5 certainly was controversial for the lack thereof with Master Chief. So
Yeah. I'm confident in the story too, because they kind of address the Cortana plot from Halo 5 a little bit, where she kind of like takes over the universe. And
Yeah.
in Infinite, they just say like, I think they just sort of push it to the side and say like Cortana's been captured or something like that. It went over
Yeah.
quite fast.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the biggest thing. Obviously, is how they handle. I'm even curious how they're gonna start the whole thing off. Are we gonna drop into onto the ring like that, and we just say, hey, just explore the whole ring as you'd like to in this semi-open world game, and we'll open up different sections as we go along. It's if there is enough of a pull there with something like that to explore and take up, like I said, 15, 20 hours, I feel like they'll have something there that people will be interested in buying off store shelves. And who knows, maybe if you buy the campaign in stores, they give you like a code that gives you a battle pass your choice or something for the multiplayer, just something extra for buying it at retail.
Yeah, this is why they should have shown it, because there's a ton of unanswered questions. One thing I loved on the Halo blog a few months ago, I think now, was they said something along the lines of, you can take a Banshee and fly into the sky, go high into the ring, and then land somewhere. And that just gives me total Breath of the Wild vibes. And I think this could be something special. I just wish they'd show it.
Yeah, I feel like I almost feel like they're concerned about showing it because there is the possibility that all right, so this has been brought up if they would launch the multiplayer if the campaign was still not ready this year. And I almost feel like that's why they have not shown it again. They don't want to show it until it's ready to go. Like, I feel like the multiplayer, they could launch that now if they wanted to, because there have been talks about there being some like closed door flighting going on right now that people have signed, agreements they can't talk about and all this. So like people are playing Halo Infinite now from what I've heard. But I feel like that campaign is the big holdup. They're like, because we didn't get a release date. Isn't that strange that we got a release date for Starfield, but not for Halo? We have a release date for Forza Horizon 5, but not Halo.
Yeah, they must be scared just to show anything. 'Cause you can't make a bad impression 2 times, and I'm sure it's far along now. I think it probably would go down pretty well, but they just don't want to risk it.
Yep. So that's my thought is like there are concerns around it being another Craig situations. They're like, hey, you know what? We'll put out a trailer in like maybe a month with a release date. And I'm trying to think of where they're going to fit it in. I guess September. They don't want it to be too close to Battlefield, I assume. And they don't want it to be next to Forza. So either beginning of October, end of September, or end of November. Those are the places off the top of my head that I can think of. But then you get to the end of November and you get into like, Thanksgiving and Black Friday and like the kickoff to like the holiday shopping. And it's going to be interesting to see where they place this game is what I'll say with some of the other games popping up. And like Call of Duty is going to pop up there too somewhere. So yeah. So we'll see.
The campaign also seems like more of a platform that they're going to keep building upon. I remember them saying things along the lines of like there's going to be like new chapters that they add over time.
Yes.
So it seems they are getting value out of it more than just being like a single player campaign.
Yes. So I'm excited for Halo Infinite. I'm very happy it showed well at E3. John is excited for Halo Infinite. John, you want to let everyone know where they can find you? I know you're over on Twitter, but you're also at Nintendo Life.
Yep, I also sometimes write on Pure Xbox, so I'm not just a Nintendo guy. I've been playing Halo most of my life.
Yeah. You were with us for the Xbox E3 stuff. Yeah. You'll play everywhere. Everywhere there's good games. So, but yeah, he's at Pure Xbox. He's at Nintendo Life, and you can follow him over on Twitter. I'll have that link down below in the description. John, thank you for joining me here today so we can talk about some Halo. We're gonna have to get everyone together and play Halo Infinite when that drops. Though I already got a bunch of people ready to go. So
absolutely,
we're gonna have some
there's
fun.
Big team battle. We can all play like 50 of us together.
Oh, that would be really cool actually to do that. You imagine streaming where everyone's playing at the same time, like over YouTube and Twitch and stuff. Oh, that'd be fun. But thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.